test, which I'm going to give you copies of that. And what I've done is I've gone through and looked at the ones that, as a group, that you missed the most. And we're going to work backwards from it. What I found is that we have trouble with proportions, word problems, algebra, geometry, line graphs. Okay, I can't here in 2 hours teach you everything you need to know about math and in all those areas. Okay, but what I do want to tell you, to show you, for one thing here, starting with that, for example, if you have, there's 40 problems in this test that you took, and I'm not sure the exact number you have to get to be passing this test, stuff like that, but let's say that it's 80, okay? So you're first going to get, I'm going to give you a word problem that's verbal here to begin with. If you have to score 80% out of 100, and there's 40 problems, how many do you have to get right to pass the 80% or better?
32.
Okay, so how do we set that problem up to solve that right now?
You divide.
Let's look at something a little bit smaller piece there first of all. How do I write 80%? It just doesn't, I mean,
0.80.
no, 80% I'm asking for.
0.8. 80. You
Oh,
say
80%. 8.
8 what?
80.
Okay? How do I write that as a decimal?
0.8.
Okay? Is 0.80 the same thing?
Yes.
Okay? How do I write it as a fraction?
80 over 100.
0.8 over 100?
No,
80 over 100.
80 over
Oh,
100. Okay? What you have to recognize is we're saying the same thing here, just multiple different ways. Okay? How else could you write that as a fraction?
8 over 10.
4 over 5.
8 over 10, 4 over 5. Okay? So what you have to do is recognize there's different ways to write that up. Okay, now, part of the problem is proportions you struggle with. Okay, so if this is 80%, how do I set the formula to figure out if there's 40 questions, how many do I have to get right to get 80%? Okay? X over 40. Explain that for all of us, and why did you say that?
X is the amount that you're going to either get right
Correct.
or wrong, and 40 is the total of
Number of questions. And that is proportional to this number here. Okay? Now, how do you solve that problem? Cross multiply, because that's the rule. So it would be 100 x equals 3,200. Okay? Looking at that, I multiplied that very quickly mentally because 8 times 4 is 32, and I had 2 more zeros to it. Okay, now, how do I solve for the final thing? How many right? Okay? And again, we can cross off zeros here. So you have to get 32 questions correct. Okay. Now, with that in mind, when they make up the test, and I'm going to do a bell curve here. You know what a bell curve is, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay? This would be 40, and this midpoint would be 20. Okay? You need to be 8 with 32 questions, which is somewhere in here. Okay, keep in mind the questions they have. These questions, you should not miss this area here because it's basically pretty simple because they give you a variety of kinds of questions. But keep in mind, there's also some at the upper end that, unless you're at the very best at math there, you may not get those answers. Okay, but your goal was to score 32, so it's okay not to get everyone correct. Because you maybe not be teaching, parabolas and stuff like that in elementary level that you're doing, but they test it for the whole level and things like that. There's some high-end questions that you have to get. So my suggestion to you is when you go through and take the test, any test, go through kind of quickly the first time, nail these easy ones, get them out of the way. When I take a test, I have to go through probably 3 times. One time I go through, get the easy ones, get them out of the way. Now I've got to come back and then look at them a second time at the ones that are more difficult for me and take some time. Okay? Like a lot of us here, my thing is I think you're either good at algebra or you're good at geometry. I'm good at algebra, but I struggle with geometry. Okay, so I would focus on the algebra questions and I'd take a guess at the geometry questions. Okay, but what we're going to do here today is kind of look at these questions here and see what can we eliminate before we take a best guess. Okay? So, with that in mind, I'm gonna give you a copy of your test, and we're gonna go through an order that represents the ones you did the worst first. Okay, there should be a complete package here with you with the formulas, okay, and the problems.
Back to that original problem that we put up on the board. In my mind, I would figure that out by taking, I knew 80%, I would have taken 0.8 and multiplied it by 40 to come up with the 32. Would that get me in trouble using that thinking? I can do that and come up with the same answer?
Is it the same steps? Yes. What the difference is, you took a shortcut. You went down here to the end first, rather than go through the steps.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay, I'm trying to show you the steps along the way, so that, you're right, that's a simple one, but what if it's not so simple? Okay, you can't see it so easily, get those steps on how to do it the harder way too, they would get it, but yes, you're correct.
Okay.
Multiplying by 0.8 gives you the same exact thing. There's multiple ways to solve the problem. And you're gonna find when you're teaching in a classroom, we talked this during class, and we had a regular math class, there's multiple ways to solve a problem. It doesn't mean there's only one way that's correct. Okay, I gave you the long method to show you the steps along the way, and how all the steps involved, in case you struggle with that. Okay? All right, now, the first problem I want to go over here is number 19. Now, this is your copy of this paper, that you have it, so any notes you want to make, please do. Now, towards the end here, I have something I think is really good, which I'll show you towards the end of the session here. I found a site that basically goes through the different, the different objectives of the math test, and give you a very good little video explanation of each thing along the way. So I'll show you that there towards the end. Now, number 19 is the one that didn't come out right on the, somebody didn't copy. Okay, but it's a parabola, okay? What do you know, and I'm sure you guys, as far as geometry and algebra here, know, what's the formula for a parabola? What is a parabola? Okay? That's okay. This is one of those questions that you're, and I can't teach you, in a second here, so we're gonna try to show you how to go through and look at this and do it as simple as possible. Okay, a parabola looks like this. That's a basic parabola. When you look at equations, if you've got something that looks like this, that has y equals x squared, that means it's a parabola. Now, the answers weren't on this test here, and I'm not sure I didn't copy the whole thing, it didn't come out when I was printing it. But what it asks you to do is to determine what the formula was for this. They give you 4 different examples. Okay, so what you've got to do, and I forget what A, B, C, and D was. You have to find one of them, and you can eliminate things. Anything that does not have y equals x squared, get rid of. Okay? Now, when we talked about earlier here that 80 over 100, 4 over 5 is the same thing, correct? Okay, if I draw a parabola like this, and this point is 2, how does that change the formula? And I'm not going to assume you know the answer here, because this is an area we have to work with.
Would it be x squared plus 2?
That's exactly right. And why is that? You
Point.
guessed that, which is a good guess, but why?
Yeah, maybe because that's where the point is.
It
and
moves up 2
2.
points. That's exactly right. Okay, so what you've got to do is, when you're looking at those 4 answers, you've got to find this first, and then look here. What else can you find that looks okay in the formula? And one of the answers was plus 2, and that means it's simply the parabola moved up 2 points in the graph. Yeah.
So and if it goes the other way, is it the same thing? X squared or y?
If it's upward inverted?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Isn't that a negative x squared? Because it's going down?
Again, I'm not sure the exact formula for that, but I believe that's correct, that it would be inverted, so it would be
Yeah, that when it opens up.
correct.
It's a positive.
Yeah, and there's different variations of it. Again, here's one of those things we don't have time to go through, because there's things you can put parentheses in there that makes it different, it moves it left and right, and stuff like that. I think if you're prepared for a basic question like this, if you remember that y equals x squared means parabola, and then you simply, eliminate the answers that don't have that stuff in it, and then at that point, like you said, your good guess it's plus 2 because it's 2 points up. Yes,
So let's say the parabola crosses at -2. Would it be x squared minus 2?
Correct.
Okay.
The choices that they had two that would have had the x squared, one was a negative x squared plus 2. So we would have eliminated the
is that
bottom.
yours and not mine?
This is, yeah, I had a copy of the
Okay.
test. So we would have eliminated right away A and C,
Correct,
and you're saying that the negative x squared
inverts it,
inverts it.
correct.
Okay, so,
So, and that's the four answers she had, and I just talk about, you had 4 answers here. A was y equals minus x plus 2. There's no x squared, it's a parabola, forget that answer, that's not even correct.
Fine.
Okay, then C was y equals x plus 2. Again, there's no x squared, eliminate that. So you really have, you've now narrowed your chances down to either B or D. Okay, because it's a negative x squared for B, you can eliminate that one, because that inverts it.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
So what you've got to do is go through some question analysis, and this is one that I've kind of skipped over the first round and then come back to. Get those simple ones first, and then take some time to analyze it so you don't run out of time, not be able to answer all the questions, or that you don't have time to answer a simple question. Okay, questions on that? Did you want to write your answers down that, because they don't have it, rock paper doesn't have that if you want to? Are you okay with
I'm
that?
good.
Okay. All right. The next one I targeted then is number 34. Okay. This is kind of like a word problem thing here that sometimes we struggle with it because we're not listening to what it says, or not reading what it says. And as simple this may seem, I think 5 of you missed this one. Okay, so it's not that simple. Okay, let's read what the problem says. In a class, there's 3 times as many students have dogs as pets that have cats. If D represents the dogs and C represents the cats, what's the equation for the problem? Okay, let's start out with a very basic part of it first. We have D and C, dogs and cats. Okay? Now, they have 4 different choices here, obviously, to go with here. So, obviously, you guys, I don't know what your answers were. Most of you went with B. Okay? Okay, now, what does B tell you? That for every cat, there's 3 dogs. And that's not right. We gotta say for every dog, there's 3 cats. So how do I make that correct?
C.
Is what?
D equals 3C.
D equals 3C. Okay, now,
3 times as many cats.
correct. Okay, so, and the reason, and just simply, if this one you skip over and come back to, think about it for a minute here. You want 3 times many cats as dogs. Okay, if you have 1 cat, C equals 1, how many dogs do you have?
3.
Great. If you have 2 cats, 2 equals C, how many dogs do you have? 6. Does that follow the pattern? Okay, looking at B, which is what many of you put down for an answer, if we have 1 dog, how many cats do we have?
3.
Great. Because T equals 1, there's 1 dog, 1 times 3 is 3, C equals 3. Now, going back over the problem, does it say that there's 3 cats for every dog? I mean, yeah. No, there's 3 dogs for every cat. It's just the opposite. Okay? And you can look at the C and D, and the same thing, if you keep adding, that's not gonna work either, because if dogs equals 1 and cats equals C plus 3, you're never gonna get the right answer there as well. So you can kind of eliminate those 2 and narrow it down to 2, but what happens is most of you guess wrong. But keep in mind, when you put the answer down like this, just check it. Like we did here. If there's 1 cat, how many dogs are there? That fits the formula. What you have to do. Okay? Questions on that? All right. All right, that was the big one we missed, and we get a little less here, as you can now hear. Okay, the next one is, as far as number lines, number 5. Okay. Let's look at some basic rules for number lines to begin with. Okay. If this is 0, in increments of 1 up here, and these are negative numbers here. Okay, how do I say that the number is greater than or equal to 0? Yeah, 0. How do I do that? In a number line.
I know how to write it out as an expression, but
I'm giving you expression, I want you to put it in the line.
How do you do that little thing and then you go this way?
What little thing?
like
Listen
Yeah.
carefully what I'm saying. The number is greater than or equal to 0. So where am I starting from?
The 0.
Okay.
And then you go
I'm starting
to
from,
positive numbers.
I'm going to go to positive numbers. Okay, now, that tells me it's all the numbers that are greater than 0. How do I show that it could also be 0?
Is it the little parentheses thing
No?
or the line down?
No?
This one,
Is
no?
it
That's
a
it.
closed dot.
Okay.
A closed dot means it includes that number. Okay? And then, for example, if I asked you to, and this, if we go to the y-axis here, 1, 1. If I asked you to chart 1, 1, where do you put that?
1, go to 1 and then.
It's a dot, because that's the only spot it is. It can't include anything else, because that's all it is. When I say greater than or equal to, it's this number and above. Okay? What if I say that the line should be all numbers that are greater than 0? How do I represent as greater than 0? Only.
You have to open circle.
Same line, and who said open circle? Okay? Because that excludes 0. Okay? What if I want a number line that says all numbers from between greater than 0 or less than 3? Listen to what I'm saying. Greater than 0, less than 3.
Have the open circle and you go to the 3. I know open.
it's a solid.
Okay? All right?
Because it wouldn't be,
It's not equal to.
right.
It's not equal to. Okay? And the same direction, I want to say all numbers less than or equal to 0.
So then it's closed and then open. I mean, open and then closed.
And all numbers less than or equal to 0.
Okay, so we have,
Closed circle and
and then open.
Yes.
there is no open. It's all numbers.
Wait, say it again?
All numbers less than or equal to 0.
Oh, okay,
All numbers
gotcha.
less than or equal. And if I say less than 0, again, it's the same thing. It becomes open. So there's a couple of little simple rules there like that we need to, that would be a question you should be able to nail, because that's probably, in fact, if you looked at the problem that they gave you there, number 5, given, well, they gave you it a little tougher for you. They gave it to you something that was complicated. Okay, so you have 4 choices here. Let's go through, and this is one of the problems here because it's probably a little more difficult, takes more time. I would put off to the side and come back to. Okay, now, looking at A, what's A times C? Solve that for me.
I don't know if I did it right, but I did negative 1.5
Correct?
times 0.5.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. So solve that.
Negative 7.5?
I don't think it's that high, but
Oh, no, it wouldn't be that high.
it's 1.5 times 5, which would be, oh, this is 7, you're right, 7.5, you're right, that is right. But it's 0.75 though.
So,
It's not negative?
it's not.
It is negative, it is negative,
Oh.
but look what we did here.
Yeah, negative 0.75.
Okay?
Oh, but I didn't move over 2 decimal spots.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So you gotta be careful of that. So it's 1.5, which is negative, times 0.5. 75 is the right part.
Right.
But keep in mind, there's 2 decimals here, so I have to go for 2 here,
Mhm.
and it's a negative 0.75.
Yeah.
Okay? So again, that's the first answer. Second answer is D divided by C. -1, that's correct. Okay? And D is D minus A.
Zero. Zero?
3.
1.5 or
You have to distribute the negative one.
We said 3. Okay, now, because this is an area we met, this is the correct answer, by the way. So let's see how we got 3 there, because that's probably where some of the problems were with this. Because you have to remember the negative sign. So D was the equivalent of 1.5, and it says minus A, which is 1.5 negative. Okay, now, that's our problem. How do we solve it?
Distribute the negative one.
Okay.
The negatives make a positive.
Yeah.
Right, these two negatives make it a positive number. Okay? And then adding them together makes it 3. Apparently what happened here, I'm assuming, is we got 1.5, 1.5, we made it 0. We forgot about the signs here, the double negative. Okay? So by going through that process then, you had to do all 4 answers. And you'll find out that D was the correct answer because it was the highest number. Okay? Questions on that? We're good with that, okay. Okay, this is another one's difficult here too. 14. And the shading didn't come out, but the shading is this quadrant to the right here. Okay? Now, we have to understand here, this is, we did the other formula, y equals x squared made a parabola. When you do just a y and an x together, it makes it a line. Okay, now, we have to understand some rules about the lines here. First of all, what's the y-intercept? Do you have to do that? Figure that out?
Each other.
Where it intercepts the y-axis. Okay, now, how do you solve for y-intercept?
Is it y equals nx plus b? Y equals nx plus b?
Okay? That's one of the equations here, for example, number A. How do we find the y-intercept there? Okay, what you do, if you want to do the y-intercept, you set the x value at 0. Okay? So what that tells you is that y is greater than or equal to 6. And if you'll notice on the line graph there, that intercept line crosses 6. Okay, now, what you have to do then, to see this drawing, I need you to use your imagination. Tilt your head. Okay? So that in essence, that this is like this instead. So if you tilt your head for a second, okay, what does the equation say here? It's greater than or equal to. Which way are we going to shade the line?
Greater than?
Greater than or equal to?
So the right side.
To the right, that's correct. I'll put that over here. And this is our regular line here. So this is our y6 intercept line we did. So what we want to do is shade this area here. So what have we done? We've removed 2 quadrants out of the problem. You got 2 choices here now. Okay. And that's why they give you 2 equations. Okay, now, the bad thing about this one is we solve it first. Before we get in the first one, we want to go through the other one to see what the difference was. We'll work through some shading here. The second equation is y is less than or equal to x minus 2. How do I find the y-intercept? X becomes 0 again. So y is less than or equal to minus 2. And where's the y-intercept then? It's down here. Okay, now. So we look at this problem again, y is less than -2, what are we gonna shade? Use your imagination, turn your head. Which quadrant are we gonna shade?
Are we not, greater than?
You know, we'll do that.
This is the line here,
Yeah, could be a lot
this
of
is the
fun.
line here, and it says less than or equal to, what am I gonna shade?
That left side.
Yeah.
The bottom
Yeah.
side.
Bottom
Because,
side.
keep in mind, this is the normal axis here, this becomes the x-axis now, it's the bottom side. Okay? So, does that match the picture in the problem? I don't know that, I think it is correct because I don't have that, it didn't shade up on the printing of it. Okay? Because y is less than x minus 2. Okay, now, just to look at those other ones here, since you understand that the number line's there as well, look at B. Y is greater than minus x plus 6. What am I gonna shade?
The top two.
Top one again?
Yeah.
Okay, and the second one is y is greater than x minus 2. What's the intercept is minus 2? And this time it's greater than, so what am I gonna shade? The upper half. Because it's greater than. Okay? C, y is less than x minus 6, so we're talking this line again. What am I going to shade? Less than, which one? Below the line. Okay? And y is greater than x minus 2, what am I going to shade there? Above the line, so it would be this quadrant here. All right? In D, y is less than minus x plus 6, what quadrant am I going to shade? Below the line again. And y is less than x minus 2, what am I going to shade? Below the line, so it'll be this quadrant here. Okay? But going through those 4 examples, A was the correct answer, because that's the one that was shaded in the problem. Okay, so again, this is a problem not have saved on the end. If you get lucky that enough time to go through that step by step like that, that's a bonus question you get, because that's a tough question to understand. Okay? But that's why you go to do the easy ones first. If you have time, there's one more correct if you have time to figure that one out. Okay? Are we okay with that? All right. Okay, next one we'll look at is 15. This becomes algebra. Okay. Okay, which of the following equations describes a parallel line? Described from this one to this. Okay, when we say parallel, what does that mean?
Our line with.
It's the same line except a different spot,
Right.
moved up or down, okay? Now, earlier, when we were solving a number of math problems we did correct, remember how we did 80 over 100 equals 8 over 10 equals 4 over 5? Okay, so by reducing it and changing it, it still says the same thing, doesn't it? Okay, now, so you want to find a line that's parallel to 2y plus 3x equals 6. Okay, how would you simplify or change that problem?
Get y by itself.
Do what?
Yeah.
Y by itself.
Get y by itself. How do we do that?
Minus 3x.
Okay, we're going to subtract 3x from both sides. That means this is 2y, that becomes now 0, equals 6 minus 3x. Correct? Do you see that answer there in the problem? No. Okay? because we haven't changed the y component. Okay, how can we change the y component now? What can we do there to that one? Divided by 2. If you divide this by 2, you must divide those by 2 as well. 6 divided by 2 becomes 3. And 3 divided by 2x. Okay? Do we see that problem there?
Yes. Wow.
I just been wrong here myself.
I got this one right, but I guessed on it because I came up
Oh,
with that
okay.
exact answer.
Okay, let's just change this a little bit, because what's happening is they're putting the x component first. So let's put that minus 3 over 2, x plus 3. Okay, now, remember we talked earlier that y equals x is simply a line. It can be a straight line. Y over minus 3 2x, again, is simply a line. Okay, now, do we have the same, we haven't changed anything, because the same formula is rearranged a different way, correct? What's the only thing that we changed? We now have, did we find a problem that has y minus 3x, 3 over 2x in it? C, correct? And what's the only difference? That is plus 3. So what happens is y minus 3 over 2 over x plus 1 is the same thing as this, except it's a different line, it's parallel. Because you're only doing is moving it up 2 points by adding that to it. Take 2 points down from it, depending what number you put in there. So what you're, again, is you're looking for the x and the y component. Okay? And if you look at it, the tricky part is they try to trick you on A. Because what they were hoping you would do is that you would put 2 over 3, which is easy enough to do. But you have to remember that you have to do the same thing on both sides, and then rearranging it gives you a better chance of seeing what it is. So this is the same thing, except the component's different. So therefore you have to find a problem that says this, and you don't worry about the last factor, because all it's doing is put the same formula, moving it up or down a little bit. Okay? Are we good with that? All right. Hmm. 16. Okay, now this should be real simple for you. I already told you the secret how to find this. What's the x-intercept of this equation here?
4. Oh, like that is.
What is it?
3.
3, okay. Here's the equation. How do we do that?
Plus 0 into y.
That's always the easiest way to do it, to plug 0 in for y. If y equals 0, it's 4x equals 12. Okay? Now, what does x equal? And the answer is B. Okay? X and y intercepts are easy to find as long as you remember the rule of 0. Okay? Could you do it a harder way? Sure. You could go through and factor the whole thing out and change the equation, come up with the same thing. But that's a simple way to do that. Okay? This is I have to confess, this, my son teaches math in Philadelphia. And so some of the stuff I haven't done for a while, so again, geometry and graphs and stuff are not my area, so I sent him a message, how do you solve this? So he called me around and said to try to respond back to it. Sorry about that, let's turn it off. Okay, so 16. All right, how are we doing so far? Okay, let's take a look at some, I have some extra sheets here just to kind of give us a break from it and take a look at something maybe a little bit different here. Okay. I have a proportion worksheet for you, which is, really should be simple for you now because we've done it a couple times. But this is an area that, again, you've struggled with. on the test, a little bit of practice is not gonna hurt you. Okay, now, looking at the problems, they're all kind of relatively simple. How do you get the factor by itself? Cross multiply, okay? So you have 4 or 6 problems here to solve. And they look good. Okay, now let me just, point out something here that you need to look at when you're doing this. For example, like number 1A. The answer come out to be 48.35. Now, the directions tell us that we have to round off the nearest 10. The 10th is the first spot, because the next number is a 5, you have to make it 48.4. You have to know that rule, or you can set your calculator probably and stroke the nearest 10, can't you? And so that would do it automatically round it up for you. So you don't make that simple mistake. All right? So you set that aside for a minute. We'll come back to this one on the back page in a little bit. Have to look at some more. Okay. All right, the next thing I want to look at is 38. Guess what it is? Proportion. And it also becomes a word problem, and I think that it gives you 2 problems here to deal with. Number 1, the word problem, understanding how to put the numbers in place, and the second problem is the proportion part, which we struggle with. Okay, now, looking at the problem, the biologist counts 200 grasshoppers in a randomly chosen 6 square meter section of the field. Total number of the area of the field is 360 square meters. Which of the following proportions estimates the number of grasshoppers? Okay, what part of the proportion do you know, both factors?
200 over 6, do first.
Okay, there's 200 grasshoppers over 6. Look at your 4 answers. What can you eliminate?
A and C.
A and C. Very good. Okay, now, what's the next thing you have to do? What's the next number?
But the,
360 square meters tells you the next area you're comparing it to. Where does that number go? On the bottom. Because it's the same as this. And not the same number in the fact that it's the same equivalent. You're talking square meters. Okay? Then your unknown is where? Up here. And I'm not going to take time to solve that because you guys just did some solving problems with that, but the same thing, if you had to solve it, you would cross multiply, you'd be multiplying these 2 numbers, dividing it by 6. Okay? Good. Number 4. That's what it is.
number 4?
Number 4, yes. What kind of problem it is it? A proportion problem. So what again, I made you these proportion problems here to work with them, but what I would focus on as far as preparation for the test, if you take it again the next time, is make sure you review the proportions, because look how many times these come proportions already. And these are ones that your group has missed. Okay, so what you're going to do is if you understand proportions much better, you're going to increase your score by, we've already done 3 or 4 problems? By 3 or 4 answers. So you got to focus on that. Okay, now, looking at number 4. There are 6 members in the technology club, but only 4 computers. The club meets for 60 minutes. Each member wants to have equal time in the computer. How much time should each member have? Okay, how are we going to set this proportion up? What fraction do we know first?
6 over 4.
Okay, there's multiple ways to do this, but that's probably maybe a little bit harder way to do it. Let's take the part that we know first. Okay, the part that's given is there's 6 members and the club meets for 60 minutes. Let's go with those 2 factors first. And as long as, somebody said 4 or 6, as long as you're keeping the components together, you can solve it that way too. But this is a better way to solve it because you have 6 members and 60 minutes. Okay? Now, the problem comes in next is that there's only 4 computers. Okay? So what do we have to do to solve this problem? We want to know how many minutes they get. Okay? So what's the second half of the equation?
Well, no, I did it the opposite way. I did 60 over 6 times 4, but.
Okay? So you have 4 computers, and what you want to do is find out how many minutes each person gets. Okay, if you look at the problem this way, there's 60 minutes in them that are available, and we have 6 members. So you want to find out how much each member gets. Okay? So, now that you've got the proportion set up, how do we solve for x?
Cross multiply.
Cross multiply. See here, 6 members, how many minutes do they get? And computers times minutes is what? 240.
40.
Okay? X equals
40.
40. Okay? Is 40 one of our answers?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay, so that tells you how many minutes they have.
Well, that's much easier than the way I tried doing it. Yeah.
Okay?
I got the right answer, but I think I did it a very long,
What you have to try to do
non-formula way.
is when you can, it makes it easier when you set the proportions up to things that are related.
Mhm.
6 members, 60 minutes. And what's going to happen is then, this is the unknown as far as the minutes, because we have minutes on the bottom on both sides. Okay? So you cross this multiply here, here's your 6 members, and they've got 240 minutes total.
See, when I was doing it, I was doing, instead of putting them together, I put them diagonal. Like, for the 60 minutes, then I would put the X on the other,
Okay.
you know what I mean? Instead of
Okay.
doing them next to each other, I did it on the
Okay.
top. So that's what messed me
Tell
up.
me how you did yours. Let's go through and solve it that way, see how it works.
I did, I just reversed them, so it'd be 6 over 60,
6 over
but then
6.
I would have the X first on the other side over 4.
Okay. Now, look at this formula what you did here. What's the common factor here and here? What's related here?
They're whole numbers,
Okay, as far as what they mean. This is 60 what?
60 minutes,
This
and then
is
the 4
what?
computers,
That's number of computers.
yeah.
So you have to find something common
Right.
on the bottom. And that's why
That's why I missed mine up.
you have to put 4. The common thing is the unknown number of minutes.
Right.
That's why you have to reverse it. Okay? Common numbers on the bottom, and then what you're trying to work on the top. Okay?
It would work the other way, though, right? Did you get the right answer?
I
Which way
don't
you,
think
how
I
did you do?
did.
Tell me.
I didn't set up the formula. I just looked at it and I was like, oh, well, you take 60 times, or 60 divided by 6 and then multiply that by 4.
You did the same thing though, didn't you?
Yeah, eventually, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
But what helps is, you're talking maybe easy numbers and a simple solution maybe. It took you a little more steps. But if you look at the proportion of what you're relating to each other, minutes to minutes, and what you're trying to compare to, it makes it simple to follow through. If you're gonna take, for example, your way to do it, and take, for example, 2 minutes to solve that problem, you can solve it in 30 seconds here, then it gives you more time for that difficult problem on another part of the test.
That kind of goes back to my question at the beginning with the 0.8, to figure out what the 80% was. It works with simple
Correct.
numbers, but if you don't know how to set it up, you're not going to be able to do the complicated ones.
Correct. You can, yes, you can skip some steps to get here if you want, if you don't understand the whole process, okay? And, you know, if you're very good at math, you can do that and get away with it. But because you need to do a certain score in your test here, I would make sure you took the steps, take the minute it takes to do it, make sure you get them correct and you get the right answer, so you don't have a foul along the way. Just like, for example, when you're doing a proportion problem, you made some simple mistake on number 2. Okay? This way it kind of eliminates some of those simple errors that you make. Because that's what happens. A lot of times, if you go back and you look specifically at your wrong answer on the test, you're probably going to kick yourself in the pants for some of the dumb things you did.
Yeah.
So if you do go through about a logical method and do the steps that you use to solve the problem, you're going to cut down those kind of simple errors that you can mad yourself for. Okay? You know, and I just, you know, when I was in elementary, probably first, second grade, I'll tell you a quick stupid story. You know, I thought I was really good at math, and there was a girl in class I was trying to impress. So I took the time to take 1 over 2, 2 over 4. I got something like maybe over 500 over 1,000. You know what? She was better than I was. Because I wanted to see, okay, solve that problem for me, reduce it. I thought you'd do it step by step by step and take a long time. I knew the answer already. She did the same thing I did. She did 1/2 and got it in 2 seconds. I felt like I was stupid because she understood how to reduce it. Okay? I didn't understand that was a simple way to do that at first. I was just learning fractions and reduction. So, follow the steps because it eliminates simple errors you make and saves you one question that you don't get wrong. Okay? Now, this brings us to the back side of this paper, which has your word proportion problems. So there are 4 problems. Take some time to look at that and do those. Keep in mind, proportions is what we struggle with the most. So take some time, make sure you follow the logical steps, put common components on the same part of the equation, solve it. Without singling out anybody here, just keep in mind that we went through this year, there's only 4 problems, but we made careless mistakes. Okay, so you have to keep in mind the things you're doing here, because then again, it takes away an answer. We've already covered 2 proportion problems that are on the testing part you have to know. Take your time. And that I would do is when you're going through doing the test, you do the easy problems first. If you're struggling with proportions, I'd come back and do proportion last to take your time and be careful that you don't make a simple mistake. Because that's all the ones that made mistakes, that's all I've seen was simple mistakes. But your first answer should be 127, 470 is the second, 1B, 156 is A, and B is 119. Now, if somebody rounded off number 1, it's 127.3, and that's okay. I don't think we need directions as far as how to put the answer down, but it doesn't matter, you got the right answer. Okay, good. All right, let's next go to number 8. Let's talk, before we look at the algebra term, because algebra is a part that sometimes scares us, let's look at some factoring things first. If I want to take a problem like this, and I want to pull something out that has a common factor in both numbers and change the equation, what can I take out of both numbers? 3. So if I pull 3 outside the equation, I now have what?
1 plus 2.
Okay, is it the same problem? Yeah. Okay, the same thing if it was 4 and 24. What can I pull out to make the different kind of equation? 4, which makes it 1 plus 6. Okay? Now, algebraic terms work the same way. Okay? Look at number 8. Okay, now, going through the process of elimination, look at A. Can you pull an x, a y squared, and an n out of both numbers?
Yes.
Yes. So A is a possibility. Look at B. Can you pull an x squared and a y squared out of both numbers?
No.
No. So B is not an answer. And cross that one off. C. Can you pull an x squared, y squared, and n squared out of both problems? No. So you can eliminate B and C very simply because they both have x squareds in them. Okay? And the last one, D, can you pull n squared out of both numbers?
No.
So what's the answer?
You just said
A.
it.
Very simply because there's an x, there's a y squared, and there's an n in both numbers. And that goes back to the basic thing we just showed here on the board as far as factoring. It's got to be something you can take out of both numbers. Okay? Questions on that? You okay? All right. On page 2 here, so you've been really going well. Okay, look at number 20. That's what it is. What is it? But it's also a proportion problem. So we've now covered 3 proportion problems that if you master proportions, you can forget about the geometry and algebra that you can't do. You're going to increase your score by 3 points. Those 3 numbers, the answer is correct. Okay, now, looking at the problem. A child who is 5 feet tall is standing in direct sunlight. The child casts a shadow 8 feet long. A nearby tree casts a shadow of 20 feet. How tall is the tree? Okay, let's look at the boy and his shadow. How tall is the boy?
5 feet.
And how far is the shadow?
8.
Okay. Now let's look at the tree. What do they give me in the tree?
X, unknown,
Which is the unknown?
the height of the tree,
Which is which line?
the left, that
Yeah.
tall, yeah.
The one that goes up. Okay? And the shadow is 20 feet. Okay? Does it look familiar again? Proportion. How do I set the proportion up?
5/8 equals X over 20.
The common components on the bottom, and the unknowns on the top of the plate of the board. Okay? So you can solve that, but see, they give you a little bit of a tricky question here. The problem is, which one is correct as far as how you solve the problem? Are you using side angle, side triangle congruence? Who knows what that is? Cross it off. The sum of the angles in a triangle?
No.
You don't know, we only have one angle, 90 degrees. Cross that off. The square of the hypotenuse of a right triangle.
I'm gonna say no on that.
Now, it's probably not gonna help you. If you look at A, proportional sides of similar triangles. Are these similar triangles?
Yes.
Yes. You have proportional sides, so therefore, this would work. So the answer would be A, as far as you're using proportional sides of similar triangles. And if you had to solve it, you could easily solve it by cross multiplying as well. So you improved your test scores by 3 points already, by correcting those 3 mistakes we're making. Okay. We're moving to 23. Now, this is where your formula sheet is going to come in hand play. Which formula we're going to use, you remember? You know what's this one?
So you could do 15/9 equals X.
Let's set up the
over
problem
6.
first. Okay, let's do that. See how we can do to solve this. Okay, you got a 15-foot ladder placed against a wall. Okay, here's our wall. We got a 15-foot ladder. We know that this is 15 foot. Correct? Okay. And its base is 9 feet away. That's this number. Correct? If the base of the ladder is moved to 6 feet away, about how high would the top ladder move up the wall? Okay, we've got the same triangle here, and my line's not proportional, but we have 15 feet, we've now moved it to 6. Can we use proportions on this one? No, because we don't know this number here. Okay? And there's, I think which one is here? The Pythagorean theorem is what we're going to be using. Okay? The Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay? Now the problem is, what's a, b, and c? Which one's are they?
You don't know.
We already do. A, B, C. Okay? So now how do you solve for how far the ladder's
Doesn't
up?
matter which one's A, B, or C?
I believe it does, yes. I think it's always considered to be C out here. on the
It
visual
has
line.
to be.
Yeah. Okay, so filling in a formula for the first problem, what is A?
That's the unknown.
It's the unknown.
Right,
Plus B squared is what?
so 9,
Let's put the number in. What's 9 squared?
81.
81. And what's C squared? How much? 225. Okay? How do I solve for A? Subtract 81. Oh, this is easy. What's A squared equal? What's A equal? 12. Okay. So we know that. Okay, now, we have to actually solve both of them here. So let's solve the second problem. And a squared is the unknown again. What's b squared?
36.
And what's c squared? Here we know that, 225. A squared is 189. So what's A? Calculator's there. That's not an even number.
13.77 or 13.8?
13.8. Okay. How far does the ladder go up the wall now? Approximate? What's my answers? Okay, but ask you for approximate. So 1.8 is approximately 2 feet. That's the answer B. Okay? This is one of those problems because look how much time it took to solve that. I put that on the end. Okay? And you go through the process of solving that using that equation then. Now, you could probably solve this by using proportions, but because this doesn't come out even, it's probably easier to do it this way. You know, this is my guess. I didn't try to solve it proportionally because I was more comfortable doing the algebra. Okay?
I have a question.
Sure.
I got lost somewhere.
Okay, let's go back.
I have, go back to the other side, a squared equals
C squared.
144. Okay, at the
Okay.
bottom there.
I subtracted 81.
Right, and you got 144.
Right. What's
So
12
how did
times?
you get to 12?
What's 12 times 12?
Oh,
Square root.
okay, square roots, all right. That's where I was lost.
Okay?
Okay.
All right? And the same thing over here. You have to take the square root of that to find
That's
it.
where I was,
Okay. Sorry about that. Just get the other two letters. Okay? So you're taking the square root of the numbers here. You got 12 and here it's 13.8. 12, 13.8. It's approximation here because 13.8 is over halfway point to make it 14. So it moved up 2 feet. Okay? All right. How are we doing so far? All right? Okay, moving to number 26. Okay. Okay, now, when you look at this problem here, if you have to understand what they're asking for as far as angle. If I asked you for the degrees of angle ACD, what are you going to tell me?
If they're equal to.
No, what number is ACD equal to? What degrees?
37.
37. Okay, because when I describe an angle, it's ACD, I'm really looking at the point where C is, that's the angle number I want. Okay? If I'm asking you for angle CAB, can you tell me the answer? Degrees?
19.
19, correct. Now, can you tell me the degrees for ABC?
No.
124.
How did you get that?
19 and 37 and subtracted from 180.
Okay, and because 180 is the sum of those three angles. Okay, and you know two of them. Okay? So that's what you have to figure out is, because now, looking at the problem here, it's a parallelogram. Do you know how many degrees ACD is?
19.
ACD.
AC.
Go to the middle point.
37.
37, because it's a man, I'm sorry.
No.
No, I'm sorry, my mistake. You're right, because they're flipped. Okay, so that would be 19. Okay, what is CAD then?
37.
37, okay? Because they're opposite, if it's parallelogram, it's the opposite numbers there. So therefore, you know two angles, you can figure the third by subtracting from 180, okay? You okay with that?
Mhm.
All right. Number 36. Okay. A typical high school court measures 84 feet long and 54 feet wide. Which is the following is the greatest estimate, the greatest number of standing adults that could fit in a basketball court at this time. How are you going to solve this?
Volume?
That's the first thing you have to find out. The area or square feet that's available, okay? How do you find that out?
Length times width.
Okay, and that answer is?
4200.
Okay? So 4,200. Now, the part that you've got to guesstimate here, how much space do you think an individual needs to stand? Okay? What do you think, how much space this is? If you give me this much space here and here, what is that approximately? 3, maybe 4 feet? Okay? So, what is your, what was your answer?
So it's
4,200
feet.
Okay, let's divide it by 4. Let's give me a little bit of space, because if I have to move my elbows, I don't want to bump somebody. Okay, divided by 4 by 42,
1050.
1,000 and some change. What's it asking you for? An estimate. So how many people can fit in that gym? 1,000. Now think about it, if it takes 1,000 and it gives you 4 feet, which is this space and this space, do you think it's possible to put 5,000 in if we even push together? No. Okay, so that's the most logical answer, because the other ones are so far-fetched, it can't possibly work. Because if you think when you multiply the square feet, 84 times 50, you got 4,200 square feet. That means if you went 1 per square foot, each person gets a square foot. You're talking that much space. And I'm sure that's not gonna work because it'll come this way too. So it's difficult to do that. So that eliminates those last two answers because it's too small for that area. So we've got to look at the answers to think about what else is there and eliminate some things like 10,000 and 5,000. It's easy to eliminate. Okay. Number 37.
Yeah.
Okay. This one I think is a little bit confusing because it pictures, and I don't agree, it's like they tell you that, I mean, all angles measure the same. Okay, so if all angles are the same, 60, 60, 60, okay, and then look at the answer really is number D, but it says it does not imply it's an equilateral triangle. I don't know how you can make that 60, 60, 60 without making it equilateral.
Yeah.
So,
I think because they're saying in the box, the student prepares an informal proof, so the student is making the assumption that
Okay.
all angles are the same.
oh, okay, yeah, that's right, I did read that, but you're right. You're assuming it's all the same, you're correct. So it's an invalid thing because you can't always assume that because something can change. You can actually move line CB out further and change the length of the lines. So, okay? All right. Go to number 2. In order to add 3/4 and 7/15, which of the following could be the numerator of the fractional equivalent? Now, we have to know the difference, what's a numerator and what's a denominator?
Denominator's on the bottom and numerator's on the top.
Tom, correct. Okay, now, so solve for the common denominator on the bottom, what would it be?
I don't remember what I got. I did it the hard way, probably.
Well, it's an easy way to do
Find a
it.
common number between 4 and 15.
Okay, so if you can't find a common number, what do you do then? Multiply it.
Okay.
And what are you doing, you multiply? We're doing 3/4 and 7/15. Now, you're going to find a common denominator, which we decided was 60. If I increase this to 60, it's by how much? 4. So what that does, multiply the numerator by.
4.
And that the answer is?
21, or 28.
28, okay? So what it's doing with the trick question part here is they want to make sure you understand the numerator, because sometimes I think we would think in the denominator, and that's where the probably went off. Okay, if you missed this question. So you find the common denominator, and of course the top one would be what?
45.
Correct. You're finding common denominator. All right. All right, number 10, guess what? Proportions. Okay, so and I don't need to keep beating on it, but my analysis is that you need to spend some time on proportions, because that's what's going to help you the most as far as, because there's the third answer now that if you got those three wrong, you've increased your score by 3 points.
What number are we doing?
Number, I think 10. Okay. At a car dealership, 3 out of every 50 cars is a hybrid. If 1,250 cars were sold, what's the number of the following equations used to determine hybrid sold? Okay, what's our proportion again? 3/50.
Mhm.
Equals,
So X over 1250. I think. Or H, yeah.
you're right, here's 50 cars sold, at the common denominator on the bottom, 1,250. And that's the unknown, okay? What's that answer?
D.
D.
D. Okay? Now, if you'll notice, and again, I use X a lot of times, but it doesn't matter, X, H stands for hybrid, it doesn't matter, it's the unknown. You can use whatever symbol you're comfortable with. Okay, I go back to X a lot of times because of my algebra training, and that's just the easiest for me to work that way. Okay. Number 12. Which of the following expressions is equivalent to 3x 2y minus 4z? Again, here's the equation. How do I change that? Multiply what?
3x
2
times 2y.
So that makes it what?
6X.
6xy. Now, if I look at the problem real quickly, do I have a 6xy?
Yes.
Yeah. So I already know the answer's gotta be D. And then I go here, and I get
12xz.
amazing, that's D. Okay, so you have to look for clues along the way. As soon as you see that, you know that's the right answer. But you have to finish to find out. Because when they put 5xy, that tells me they're assuming you're gonna add those numbers instead of multiplying. And when I see 24xyz, I'm thinking they're assuming you know 3 times 2 is 6 times 4 is 24. So those are things you eliminate because those are steps you don't do. So again, if you take it step by step and process elimination to see what answers are any good, as soon as you got, you right away, that was a quick clue that 6xy was the right answer because that's what fit right away. Doesn't always work that way, but again, eliminate the answers don't work. Okay. Number 24. We're going to this direction because this is where we're getting to less and less if you miss these questions. So we're getting better because maybe one or two or three you miss these two. Okay. Using the capacity, this is a good one to look at because you have to use the formula sheet. And how does the formula sheet help you on this one?
That would be the volume on the cylinder.
Volume. So what's the formula for volume?
Pi r squared h.
Okay? Good. Now, before you jump too far ahead here, let's make this one simple as we can. You say a couple shortcuts here. Pi r squared h, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And this is equal to volume. What's pi?
1.14.
But don't they give you an answer for that? 22/7. This makes it simpler. Okay? What's r squared? Now, here you have to think about it a minute. What are they telling you here? That the diameter is 14 feet and the height is 30 feet. How do I find the radius?
Half of the diameter.
Half the diameter. Okay? Could I use 14 in there? No, because r squared is different than 14. R squared is times 7 is 49. You can't just use diameter in there. Okay, and the height is 30 feet. Okay? Now, make it simple for yourself. Do we have common things we can get rid of here?
Mhm.
Can you get rid of that 7, make it 1? We can get rid of 7 squared and make it 7. Simply, how do you find the answer now?
Multiply.
You multiply 3 whole numbers, because everything is now over 1. And that comes out to be what?
4,620.
Is that an answer?
Yes.
All right.
C.
Okay, now, could you have done this differently? Could you have multiplied that, make that 49, and then divide it by 7? Do you see how canceling makes it simpler to solve? Whenever you can cancel numbers out, do that, because we solved that in 30 seconds, basically, versus spending the time, maybe a minute or so longer. It allows you to work with your tougher questions. Okay? And that's really good, we get to see the, okay, look at 25. This is kind of a tricky question, because I was thinking about it myself when I first saw it. Okay. Triangle ABC is reflected over the y-axis. What does that mean?
It's flipped.
It flips over to the other side. Okay? It's reflected, so that means side AC is going to go on the outside, on the other side of that axis. Okay, now that you know that, what's the coordinate that works there?
4, 4.
4, 4. Because on the other side of that axis, the y-axis now, it's an exact reflection of it. So the mirror image of the other side, which makes it 4, 4 instead of minus 4, 4. Okay? Okay, on the last page. Let's go to number 30. Okay. Here's a diagram, and then when you pull out 2 quarters, okay, and they want to see how you can be lucky enough to pull out a New York and a Pennsylvania state quarter. Okay, so how many quarters are you pulling out?
2.
2. How many coins are there total in there?
4.
No, total, of all the coins that are there. Isn't there 3 in each section?
That's just that's your probability of pulling that out.
Correct, that's what we're trying to figure out. There's a total possibility of 12 quarters in there, right?
Oh, like 12 possible outcomes?
Yes, there's 12
Yeah,
possible
okay.
quarters in there, correct. So if you're pulling 2 out, and there's 12 options in there, what's the proportion for that? 2 over 12? Is that an answer? No. But is there an answer there that's similar to that? What is it?
1/6.
1 over 6, because we can reduce that. So you gotta keep that in mind, if you have to do another little step there extra. Okay.
Oh geez, that's easy.
You what?
I said, well, that's easy.
Yeah, I think there's only, what I know, there's 2 in the group that missed that one,
I
so you got,
cannot figure that problem out.
okay? Okay, go to number 32. Okay. This one here is okay. How many, bag contains 6 red marbles and 4 blue marbles. A person reaches into the bag twice and removes a marble each time without removing the bag. What's the probability the first marble is red and the second marble is blue? Now this, I think is a little bit tricky. Okay, let's look at, when you pull out the first one out, what's your probability of getting a red marble?
6 out of 10.
6 out of 10. So what can you eliminate?
1, or A, B, and B.
A and B. Okay, now, the part that you have to think about here is that you've pulled 1 marble out here. Here's a tricky part of the question. How many marbles are now in there?
9.
9. So now if you pull out a marble, what's the chance of getting a blue one?
4 out of 9.
4 out of 9. Okay? And that's a tricky part because they don't think about that you've removed 1, now you've changed the probability. So that makes it 4 out of 9. Okay? Okay, let's go back to number 1.
Oh,
Okay, this is careless.
yes.
Okay? Okay, look what it tells you to do. Which is the millions?
That would be the 3,
The 3. And what's the hundreds?
the 4.
The 4. What's the product? 12. Okay? These are one of those ones that are careless mistakes you have to think about to make sure you don't miss. Okay? Number 3. Restaurant can seat 112 diners, has already seated 74. Which of the following expressions equals in the percent of seats still available? Okay, so first of all, how do you figure out how many seats are available?
Subtract.
Subtract what?
74 from 112.
Okay, what can we eliminate then?
B and
B.
B.
A and D. Okay, so which do you think it is and why? You now have available seats left. You have one final percentage. Why?
Because there's 112 seats in all, like 112 diners.
Well, what does 100 tell you to do first of all? What's that help me out with?
That's
Percentage.
That's the percentage. You have to multiply by 100.
Yeah.
Okay, now, how do you choose 112 over 74?
Because there's 112.
112 seats.
Mhm.
So the answer is A. Logic. You know, take some time to think about it, read the problems carefully, what it's telling you to figure out. Okay, let's go to number 7. This one is makes you think as well, too. Okay. The pattern of the table below, what's the number of the 6th position? How many tables are going to be there?
6.
Okay?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, it's a long one here, hold on. 17 I went through here, I'm sorry. Okay. This again is a reading problem, you have to think about what it's saying. The population in 1998 is approximately 2,400. In 2004, population grew to 31,000. How much growth was there?
7,000.
7,000. Okay. So now, which of the following is true? Or can you find out is it true? Okay. Number one, population is increasing more slowly in 2004 than 98. Can you tell that from those numbers?
No.
No, because you don't know what the prior growth was. Population is expected to grow by 3,500 people every 3 years. Is that true?
Yes.
Why?
Because there was the 7,000 growth in 6 years, so if they're asking for 3 years, that's half.
Correct. That is correct. Population will double every 12 years. Did it tell you that? No. Population is expected to grow 7,000 people every year. No, I already told you 7,000 in 6 years. But again, the trick was, you've got 7,000 in your mind already, don't be expecting to put that number down, because that's why they give that number there, the option to think about. Okay, let's go to 21. Okay, a group of hikers is spending 3.6 kilometers of a planned 7,400 meter hike. How many kilometers remain to be hiked? Okay, now, how do we get 3.6 and 7,500? What's the correlation?
You have to convert your meters to kilometers.
Okay, and what is that then?
1,000, so you would, that would make 7.5.
Okay, and then if you do that,
And then you would subtract the difference to find out how many miles you had left to hike.
and the answer is
3.9.
3.9. Okay? You have to also watch when you're talking about units, meters, kilometers, if you're converting them over to where they're going to be. I think that there's more than one like that we had a problem with. Okay, look at 27. Okay? In a local school, high school, they have 4 math, 4 English, 4 science, and 2 science, 2 social studies. And every kid's schedule consists of 1 class of each of the subjects. How many different student schedules are possible? So what factors do you have to have in the formula?
4 factors, the class numbers.
4, 4, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
Can you eliminate anything?
Yes.
Which one?
8.
B, because there's a 1 there. Okay. Look at C and D. Is there a purpose of multiplying by 2 or dividing by 2?
There's no 2 in the
We don't know
problem.
how many.
There's
people
no
there
2
are.
that makes any sense there at all.
Yeah.
So you
So
eliminate
it's A.
that. And so the answer is A. Okay?
So it's-
Process of elimination. Look at your answers and what doesn't make sense and go from there. Okay. I got one more that I plan to go over here with you. Okay? Look at 29. And this has got a little trick question in it to figure out. Table shows results of distance employees commute from home to work. Okay? 3 of the employees commute 50 miles to work. Is that true?
Mhm.
What?
Well, that's question 3 of the employees.
Is that true?
You don't really know,
You don't know that. Why?
because it only says it's greater than 50.
Greater than 50. It doesn't say it's equal to 50, it says greater than. So that answer is wrong. Most of the employees spend at least 1 hour commuting to work. Can you answer that question?
No, you don't know how long it takes them.
You don't know how long. They didn't give you that factor. They gave you miles. So you can eliminate B. All the employees commute at least 1 mile to work. No, why?
That's an absolute statement. And obviously, there's 9 employees that travel somewhere between 0 and 9.
0 to 9. It could be a half a mile.
Right.
So the answer has to be
Feet.
C, because more than employees live, if you count the numbers up, 10, 26, 35 employees live within 30 miles. Okay? But that's the ones that I've targeted that I saw in your test results that you missed, and again, the further down we went, there was only, the last part, only one of you missed out that I had results from. Okay, the beginning part was only had no problems with. The things that you have to focus on are proportions, because I think we figured out, what, 3 or 4 inches could have gotten better there. Again, going through the test and solving the ones you know first, and then coming back with the harder ones and spending some time on them. Okay? Now, what I have yet else I want to give you here, let me stop first. If there's something on there that you have a question on that I didn't cover, I think the rest of them, nobody missed that I know of, unless it's something that didn't turn testing. Is there anyone, if you have a question, want to tell you to try to explain? Keep these sheets, and, perhaps if you want to, go ahead.
So number 39,
Okay? That one, I honestly must confess, I'm not sure myself. Look at that one here. And I didn't know how to do that one.
it's a tough, I mean,
It's a tough one, yes. I don't know how to, how to
I just
cross it.
looked up the numbers, and the only one that was uneven was A.
okay.
Everyone else was
Oh,
even
that's what I did
numbers.
mine too, I think.
So, okay, so like,
Every other number added up as an even number, and then A was the only one that was.
okay, so you actually solved two,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
And that's the right answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
'Cause
So you did it by the process of elimination?
Yeah, because they all add up to an even number, that
Okay.
A's only not.
And that's a good strategy when you're not sure how to find the answer. If you find what the questions have things in common, and as she did there, they were all even numbers except the first one, that was a good way to eliminate. Okay, I'm sorry, I can't explain that one to you. Okay. Anything else?
Number 22.
22?
Yeah.
Circle is drawn in a coordinate system. The center of the circle is located at 3, 5. So there's the center of the circle. Okay? Given the circle passes through the point 75, okay? That means it's arced like this, okay? What is the circumference of the circle? Okay, your formula chart. Circumference is 2 pi r, okay? What is r? What's the difference from here to here? 4. Okay, so 4 times 2 should be 8r. 8r, it'd be 8 pi r, I'm 8 pi, I'm sorry. Because you have the 4, you have the 2, those are the numbers. Okay?
Thank you.
Don't forget to use these formula sheets, they're very helpful, and that was a simple solution. What else? Anything else you have questions on? Okay. Now, there's one more thing I want to show you here, and I have my computer back up for it, and I'll tell you what it is here. I found a website, actually, it's Clinton University, that has taken the math objectives, and each objective under the category, they've got an instructional thing that's on it. And I think it's very good. I want to show you one, and take a look at it. If you decide you like it, what I will do is I emailed this website to myself, and what I'll do is I will, you kids will look at this. If you want me to forward it to you, and I'll do a forward by email, and you can put your email address on it, and you can have it yourself then. I think it's very good because it takes the objectives, each one of them, and goes through them. Let's pull that up. I don't know how I got my wife's name here instead of mine, but it works. Are you guys coming next Saturday? She'll be here next Saturday with you on the language and,
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you haven't turned your writing scores or your writing essay into me, send that to me as soon as you can.
that's very helpful because it helped me a lot because I can sit there and like we did today,
Right.
go through the problems that you missed and focus on those and then there's time afterwards if there's additional questions you have.
I didn't even take that part
I
yet.
didn't send the answer to you, I gave you my, so I'll give it to you.
That's fine.
Actually, I forgot to send you that.
That's fine. It's just whenever, just the writing part, so I can forward them on to Jo Beth, so she can do something very similar to what Ed did, so we can.
Okay.
Your wife is
So
doing
not the multiple choice, just the actual.
The multiple choice and your
Okay,
essay.
all right.
Yep.
She's doing the reading and the language arts. Okay, now take a look at this.
TV needs to be.
Okay, what?
TV.
Oh, I'm going to look at that, I assumed it was on.
It was, just went to sleep.
No.
There we go.
Okay, this is what I liked about this.
Okay.
Introduction of order of operations, and I don't care what category that you're weak in or need help with, linear functions, practice guide, okay? You just click on one of those links there and it gives you a detailed explanation. Okay, now, I'll just start one and show you what it is because I really like this a lot. And as far as order of operations here, let's just take a quick look at this one. And if you decide it's worthwhile for you to do that, then I'll set this up so you can simply put your email address on it and it'll come to you. But I thought this was a phenomenal site. Now I don't have the volume up, I just got to go through the, I didn't bother to look it up, but I'll go through the visual part. You can add a volume to your desktop if you want to, then go to that. And this is a total of 9 minutes long. We won't watch the whole thing. We'll get the beginning part of this little gist of it so you can understand what it is. And then if you decide you want it, you can, I'll just forward it to you. Okay, so here's the problem. 7 plus 3 times 5. There should be volume on the line. Oh, I did the volume on
Right, so you could say, well, if you just take 7 plus 3, you could say 7 plus 3, and then multiply that times 5, and 7 plus 3 is 10, and then you multiply that by 5, 10 times 5, it would get you 50.
Is that
So
correct?
that's one way you would interpret it if we didn't agree on an order of operations. Maybe it's a natural way, you just go left to right. Another way you can interpret it, you say, oh, I like to do multiplication before I do addition, so you might interpret it as, I'll try to color code it, 7 plus, and you do the 3 times 5 first. 7 plus 3 times 5, which would be 7 plus 3 times 5 is 15, and 7 plus 15 is 22. Is 22. So notice, we interpreted the statement in 2 different ways. This was just straight left to right, doing the addition, then the multiplication. This way, we did the multiplication first, then the addition. We get 2 different answers, and that's just not cool in mathematics. It's like this was part of some effort to send something to the moon because 2 people interpreted it a different way, or one computer interpreted one way, another computer interpreted another way. The satellite might go to Mars. So this is just completely unacceptable, and that's why we have to have an agreed upon order of operations, an agreed upon way to interpret this statement. So the agreed upon order of operations is to do parentheses first. Let me write it over here. Parentheses first, then do exponents. If you don't know what exponents are, don't worry about it right now. Exponents, and in this video, we're not going to have any exponents in our examples, so you don't really have to worry about it for this video. Then you do multiplication. Let's write mult, short for multiplication. Then you do multiplication and division next. They kind of have the same level of priority. And then finally, you do addition and subtraction. Finally, you do addition and subtraction. So what is this order of operations?
Okay, now that's a very simple example for that, but if you look at the whole thing there are, I think, a lot of grades, there's a lot of categories here, and it covers every one of the objectives: understanding numbers and numbering system, principles of algebra, linear and nonlinear functions. So, understanding measurements, concepts, geometric principles, knowledge of data, statistics, and probability. Any area that you feel weak in, it's got something that's going to instruct you on and help you out there. So I think it's a real good site. You've got to decide whether you want it or not. It's up to you. What I will do is I will set my computer up, and I don't have my email, so I'll just do it this way. I'm going to set this up to forward it. And anybody that would like to have this, just simply put your email address in. I think it's a good site, and like I say, my suggestion for you guys as a group is